Hey there, estate planning attorney Paul Rabelais here, and in this video we're going to talk about what you should consider doing in light of the new administration proposed tax hikes. All right, so the Biden administration is reportedly taking a look at several tax hikes. One of the several tax hikes that they're considering is an increase in the estate tax. According to a Yahoo Life article I read yesterday, the proposal on the estate tax side is to increase the rate from 40% to 45%, but even more significant, the proposal is to reduce the current $11.7 million exemption that each estate has down to $1 million. All right, so let me tell you what this video is and it isn't. What this video isn't is a political video. We could debate on another video whether an estate tax is appropriate, is the right form of tax, whether it's fair or unfair. That's not what we're going to do here. This video does three things. Tells you what the current rules are, tells you what the proposed rules are, and then it tells you what kind of action you should take based on the current and proposed rules. That's all this is. Who is this video for? It's really for high net worth individuals, couples who have a high net worth. What is high net worth for purposes of this video? Maybe if you have an estate worth $6 million on up all the way to hundreds of millions or $1 billion or more, you're going to want to really understand these rules. Maybe you have a large investment portfolio. Maybe you have real estate that has significant value. Maybe you own a business that when the business gets appraised, it has significant fair market value that would be subject to the estate tax. All right, so let's talk about what the current rules are. The current rules for 2021 currently are each person has an estate tax exemption of $11.7 million. And since many people are married, we got to cover that rule. With married couples, each spouse has an $11.7 million estate tax exemption. So really married couples can exempt $23.4 million from the estate and gift tax that we have. All right, now the proposal, and let's go back, one other real important rule. That $11.7 million exemption that you have, you can use it either during your lifetime by transferring to the next generation up to $11.7 million. There'll be no tax on that transfer. Or you can use that exemption when you pass away. So the first if you haven't used it during your lifetime, the first 11.7 million that you have when you die will avoid the estate tax. So real key component here to know that you can use it either during your lifetime or when you die. What's the proposed rule? Well, it seemed like when Biden was running for president, it seemed like the Biden proposal was to reduce the $11.7 million exemption from that to somewhere, they weren't real specific, but maybe $3 or $3.5 million. But in a Yahoo Life article I read yesterday, that they indicated that the proposal was to reduce the exemption from $11.7 million to $1 million. And then again, the proposal is to increase the estate tax rate when an estate does exceed that applicable exemption amount. The tax rate would jump up from 40% to 45%. I've seen other articles that have indicated that the proposed tax rate should be 50%. Okay, so what does all that mean? Let's take a slam dunk no-brainer for starters. Let's take I know this is high net worth stuff I'm talking about here, but you got to talk about the high net worth to really see how all this stuff works. So let's take the couple that has perhaps an estate worth $40 million. All right, so the whole idea there is use the exemptions now while you have them. Right now, a married couple with $40 million or a $40 million estate has the ability to transfer $23.4 million on down to their next generation. Now, how do they do that? That's another discussion. It may go outright, maybe to children, maybe to grandchildren, maybe in trust, and so that's another discussion. But for purposes of this video, it's just get it out of your estate and get it on down to the next generation. So that $40 million couple transfers $23.4 million out of their estate to the next generation. They're left with $16.6 million, and they're going to have to eke out a living off of that $16.6 million. Now, when they die, because they already used up their exemptions, because they used them during their lifetime, yes, that $16.6 million would be subject to estate tax. Let's call it 50%. And so there would be $8.3 million of tax due when that $40 million couple died, perhaps years later. Now, but the tax savings are so much more significant than that because, well, first of all, let me say, if that couple had just left the $40 million, in their estate, and then they died, never having used any of their exemption while they were alive, never having used any of the 11.7 million per spouse exemption that they could have used when that was the law, when they could have used them, then they didn't. And then maybe a couple of years later, they die with their $40 million estate, and the estate tax laws have changed. The exemption has been reduced down to $1 million per spouse. That $40 million couple could only shield $2 million from the estate tax. $38 million would be subject to a 50% tax. That's a $19 million tax bill when they die. So just by taking that one action when they could and use the $11.7 million exemptions when they have them, that, and wound up paying $8.3 million of tax, that was about an $11 million tax savings versus leaving it all in their estate and winding up with a $19 million tax bill by not taking advantage of the exemptions when they had them. So actually, the tax savings, though, would be significantly more than that, because here's what happens. The older generation transfers that $23.4 million to the next generation, and then the parents don't pass away right away. Let's say the older generation lives for another 20 years after they transferred their $23.4 million to the next generation. Well, that $23.4 million that they transferred to the next generation, it's going to grow during that 20-year period while the older generation is still alive. Let's say the 23.4 million that gets transferred to the next generation, it appreciates at a 5% rate. 20 years later, when the parents die, that $23.4 million is now worth $62.9 million. And so by right now transferring those assets to the next generation, and they're not only saving the tax on what was transferred, but they're saving the estate tax on all of the future appreciation of those assets after those assets are transferred. So the $40 million couple just now saved $31 million because they would have transferred $23.4 million. Over 20 years, that would have grown to $62.9 million. And then they would have passed away saving $31.5 million because they saved the tax on all of the assets that were transferred, plus all of the future appreciation. So really big tax savings there. So that's for I'll call it the high net worth people. That was a couple with $40 million. What if you have kind of modest high net worth? So let's take a person who they don't have $11.7 million to transfer to the next generation. Let's say a person kind of moderate high net worth one individual has an $8 million estate. I could see the thought process going through that individual's mind. I have $8 million. Right now, if I die, I can leave up to $11.7 million to my family free of estate tax. I'm in good shape. However, it looks like they're going to reduce the estate tax exemption to $1 million, $3 million, $3.5 million. And if I leave my $8 million in my estate, there's going to be millions of dollars of tax due when I die. But that $8 million individual doesn't want to transfer all $8 million to the next generation, leaving themselves destitute. They could if they wanted to, and all of that $8 million would move on down to the next generation free of tax. It would be a smart tax thing to do, but it just doesn't make sense. So I could see maybe that kind of frugal $8 million person might say, you know what? I'm going to transfer $5 million to the next generation. I'm going to keep $3 million and I can live off that. I'm frugal. But that way I can use part of my exemption now. It's a whole lot better than leaving it in my estate, having the tax laws change, and only be able to exempt $1 million when I die. So those people who are between the $1 million and the $11.7 million net worth, they've got some decisions to make on whether they want to go ahead and transfer more than the $1 million now to take advantage of the larger exemption that they have. All right, another piece is when would all this take effect? So no guarantees for me. So number one, I don't know if Congress is going to change anything. And then number two, if they do, I don't know when it's effective and I don't know what it's going to be. I can tell you what would be logical to me. I could see the president and Congress changing the law, and I could logically see that these tax law changes would take effect on January 1st of 2022. That would seem to make sense. But could they change the law so it's effective, when they change it sometime during 2021 and make it effective from that day moving forward? I guess it's possible. It would be difficult. Could they change the law and make it retroactive back to January 1st of 2021? Boy, that's a stretch. I just don't see that. But who knows? Not everything that Congress does is logical. So all I can do is give you my best guess that if the estate tax laws are changed, the logical time to effect that change would be January of 2022 moving forward. Now, I will tell you, if they make that change and make it effective January 1st, 2022, don't wait till the last minute. There are going to be lawyers like myself who sometime in perhaps October or November are going to say, I'm not taking any more clients. There are too many people out there who have asked me to help them take advantage of this large estate tax exemption scenario. And especially if you're trying to get value like different pieces of real estate and businesses, can be a fairly complicated transaction. So don't wait until December 15th to say I got to do something. So there are already many people who I have talked to here as early as February and March of 2021 and say we want to be ready or we want to do this right now. Makes a lot of sense. So be aware, but what I can assure you is make sure you subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep you informed. So any kind of big change or anything that I see, you can book it. I'm going to make a video here, so make sure you subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss anything. And then, of course, give it an old thumbs up. That'll help the YouTube algorithms share my videos with more people. All right, y'all have a great day. Take care.